Perfect. So today is April 30th, 2024. My name is Paula de la Cruz-Fernandez. This is an interview about Mi Apa with Peter Ynigo for the Gainesville Business History Oral History Project run by the Inquire Capitalism program of the History Department at the University of Florida. Understand that for us and for the public, the information you are providing is a gift, as it is an incredible historical resource and we dearly appreciate it. This interview will be available on YouTube and on the University of Florida digital collections. Please introduce yourself. What is your full name and could you please spell it?
Yes, my full name is Peter Ynigo and is Peter. Last name is Ynigo. The N is
right.
Missing the little
Enye.
So we say Ynigo in the U.S., but it's Ynigo correctly.
Perfect. Great. So tell us a little bit about you. Where were you born and what was your family life, your environment?
Yeah, so I was born in Cuba, in the Pinar del Rio province, which is the countryside of Cuba, tobacco fields and sugarcane. I was born in a small town called Bayonda. My grandfather was the mayor in the early 50s of the town. Not that exact town, the town nearby called Cabaña. And I grew up there. I moved around from there to Orozco, and then which is also closer to Cabaña. And from there, I went through kindergarten and first grade and part of second grade. And then I was born in 1972. And in 1980, there was something called the Mariel boat lift, where 120,000 Cubans came very quickly. So my grandfather from both dad and mom were here. They were both had to exit Cuba in the 50s because of Fidel Castro. So they have always been wanting to bring the family back together, especially my dad. So they got together, rented a boat, and went to get us. And in May 10th of 1980, in the Mariel boat lift, our boat was the only boat that didn't make it to Key West. Our captain decided to drive his boat all the way to Miami. So we actually came in through the Miami River and parked it right behind the Miami Herald. So that was an ordeal. They picked us up, and then from there we ended up at a big stadium, which I didn't know what it was. It happened to be the Orange Bowl. And there we stayed for about 3 days. We slept in military cots and showered in the Miami Dolphin locker rooms. And then we went to Opa-locka airport, where they had processed everyone. And a day later, they released us. And I started my third grade in this country. And that was that summer or that fall. And from there, I grew up in Miami, did third grade on to all my school. Typical Miami life. I lived in Flagler and 18th in Miami, which is the heart of La Pequeña Habana. So my streets were Flagler, 7th, 8th, Calle Ocho, and so on. So I grew up, typical Miami life, but I was very involved in Boy Scouts and little things, sports and baseball, of course, and did a little bit of everything. Went through middle school, went through high school. I went to a very popular school in Miami called Miami High. Graduated in 1990, and then by then, in my early teens, I happened to get involved in the '84 Olympics. Was in LA, and I watched bicycle races and velodrome, and I was very intrigued and bought a bike and started riding, and I got into the sport of cycling. In '88, I got an opportunity to ride for a team in Miami that was based out of Valladolid, Spain. And they took us as an exchange group, the team, and we lived with other teammates from other teams. And 89, I went back, but of course I was still going to school. And then from there on, why am I telling you the story about the bike? Because this connects how I ended up in Gainesville. In 89, I went back to Spain. Then I lived in Costa Rica, traveled, raced my bicycle everywhere. Got paid very little to do it, and my parents supported me through that. Didn't go to pretty much any college or anything like this because I was racing my bike. But by 91, 92, the Hurricane Andrew hit, and I was in Costa Rica racing. It was a little hard on my parents, so I decided, let me come back. And I went to work at a bike shop. Worked at a bike shop at age 19 or 20, very young, went up very quick, became the manager very quick, was running multiple stores for this gentleman, and I realized that I had reached my top level unless I wanted to own a bike shop. And there was a big distributor in Miami called J&B Importers, and I applied there, took a pay cut, and went to answer phones. And I worked for these wonderful guys named Jack and Ben, and that's why the company is called J&B. I became very good friend with a kid in the warehouse, which I didn't know after 2 years later was the son of one of the owners, and he's a good friend of mine now. And a year and a half later, I started like in 93 with this company. About a year and a half later, I was doing purchases for them out of Italy and Japan and Taiwan. An opportunity came to cover outside sales, which was where the money was, where you actually made a little bit of money. And at the age of 22, I got the opportunity. I had just started dating Aurora, and we had just met in the early 95, and we both came up here in the summer of 95, found a place. We rented at Polo's on Williston, and we moved to Gainesville in August. I started doing my job. Jacksonville and Orlando were my big cities, so Gainesville was right in the middle. And a lot of my friends have come to UF. Of course, I had done a bunch of races here in UF, so I have been to Gainesville plenty of times. And that's how I started in 95. 95, worked on, and we moved on. And Aurora, we signed her up at ELI, at the English Language Institute here. She did a full year. Learned English because she had just gotten here from Cuba, also from Havana. And then from there, this is now like 96, 97. You know, she's finishing school. She gets a job at a hotel, cleaning rooms. She definitely didn't like that. And she got a job at O2B Kid. I keep doing the bicycle things, very good. Things are getting better. I'm employee of the year, like the next 3 years. And then the youngest rep on the road. And then from there, now 98 comes around. Aurora is taking care of babysitting a kid for one of the professors here. And they move away, and we decide, okay, what are we going to do? Because I don't want you to go back to O2B Kid making $4 an hour and cleaning diapers all day or rooms or so. Why don't we do a business? And then we started thinking about what can we do for her, and we thought of a grocery store, a little Spanish grocery store that we can bring some product. Back in the day, I used to still go to Miami once a month for meetings, and I had a Dodge Caravan. And then I went down and I thought, we opened the grocery store, and we found a little location, only 800 square feet. I remember there was a Eckers had closed down here, and we bought all their racks. We put the racks inside the store, and we bought 2 coolers. And then her uncle made her a register counter. And then we found, I don't even know, a POS from somewhere. This is 95. I mean, Google has just getting started. So I found a POS. I was always very technology driven. So I remember in 95, I already had like a phone card on my laptop so I can place orders and be online and so on. we were very advanced in that sense. So we found a computer that we put codes. So Aurora would ring up. We opened the store, and before I move into Aurora would ring up, we opened the store in December of '99. I remember we put $40,000. That was all the money we had at the time. And that was for the coolers and the racks and everything in the product. And I remember going down to Miami, picking up every stuff in the van, but the stuff wouldn't fit. And then we're driving up. And so then my father, who when we came here from Cuba, my grandfather owned a gas station and a mechanic shop. So we worked in the mechanic shop. My grandfather passed away. He kind of had to do his own thing. And so he had his own little shop there. So I asked Dad, can he help me bring some product up? So we rented a U-Haul and the minivan, and then Aurora would place the orders for the groceries, and then my dad would pick them up. And then he would drive Friday nights and wake us up whenever he arrived, which was normally around 2 or 3 in the morning. So then we would go to the store and we would unload everything, put it on the shelves. Mom and Dad would help us, and then Aurora would leave to get some sleep, and I would enter everything into that old POS. And the POS was, we would ring everything up like harina pan, it was 1, 2, 3. And then like pastelitos, 1, 5, 6. So Aurora had to know, I don't know, a million codes. So that was kind of insane. There was no
but
UPC,
everyone
no
ended
UPC
up
code.
learning them, the codes.
Yeah. I forgot how we switched over to a better POS, but at the time, that's how we did it. And and then from there, I think we went to the UPS and everything. So we would do that, and then I would enter everything, and then Aurora would come at 9, open the store, and then from there, I would leave to get some sleep, and then my parents would drive back. We did that in 99, 2000, and it was end of 99, so it was like 2000, 2002, and 2003. In 2003, or even before that, people kept asking us, where can we get cooked food? And at the time, Gainesville had a couple of Latin restaurants. There was a little store on 13th Street called La Familia, which he had been around there, a little Cuban store. He would go to Tampa and bring Ybor bread. He was famous for that. Then Emiliano's, which was downtown, Wanda and her husband, and they were there forever, till not that long ago, I think 30 years in business. And then there was a gentleman called Carlos, a place called Café Tropical, on where Cintron is today. And Carlos would buy things for me and so on. So I thought of the idea, then Carlos closed down his store, and I didn't really, it was either Wanda or Emiliano's or La Familia, and I forget if there was another place, but there wasn't a lot of options. And then we decided, why don't we open a restaurant, because we're already going down to Miami and bring in all the product. So my father spoke to a gentleman near his house in Hialeah Garden that worked at a very successful place called BlueSky, which do food by the pound. And there was a gentleman there that was a really good cook, and he had been there for like 15 years. And we convinced him to come up. So then I convinced my aunt to come up. I convinced my mom. And then we had a cousin who worked for Latin America restaurants in Coral Gables, in Coral Way. And Latin America is like staple of Cuban restaurants. They used to carve all the Cuban sandwiches in front of you and everything. So we convinced Orlando to come up. He had worked for that restaurant for 16 years, and he left that, and then he became our sandwich guy. Nilo became our chef. My aunt was doing all the bakery with my mom and so on. And so we started looking for a location. So, and then one day I used to cover the bike shops here on Tuesdays. I used to come visit all my stores, and I see that Kentucky Fried Chicken had closed down on the location existing where Mi Apa is today. And am I going to from personal to okay? All right.
Perfect.
So then from there, I see the Kentucky Fried Chicken closed down. And I went in, and the gentleman that owns it, I forget his name now. He's still here in town. He lives in Alashua. He owns like multiple KFCs. And I said, I would like to buy, get this location and buy your equipment. And he told me, yeah, that he can do that. But he couldn't sell me anything that said KFC, but anything that was not proprietary. He can sell me like the coolers and all that stuff. So I said, okay, so how much do you want for it? And he told me, just think about it, and I'll be here tomorrow. Come by and make me an offer for everything. So then I thought about it, and I remember looking at other locations, and most of the locations you have to put a grease trap, and you have to put a hood or a walk-in cooler, and those are the three main things. And a grease trap alone back then was a couple of $1,000, or I remember a hood was $1,000 a foot, which now is a lot more than that. And so I thought, let me just offer him $30,000. Is it okay if I talk numbers? Because I don't mind.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. So I offered him, I said, let me go over there. The gentleman was from Bangladesh. And I'm sorry if I get emotional because that was a big jump for us. So I said, all I have is $30,000 because we need money to get the store open. And he goes, are you a big company? And I was like, no, Aurora and I own a little grocery store up the road. And then he said, okay, you remind me of me when I came to this country. And then he said, why don't you give me $10,000 and pay me whenever you want. So I wrote him the check that same moment. But then the problem came that he said, go talk to the landlord before you pay me because I don't know the lease. So I called the landlord, and it's the same landlord that I have there now. And he said to me, we have no interest of renting you the space. The gentleman from KFC's got 2 more years on his lease, and we're going to take our time and find a national chain. So I went back to him and I said, they're not interested in renting me. They said you're still on for another 2 years. So he said, oh, really? I said, yeah. He goes, okay. So he got on the phone with his attorney, and he said, hey, I think his name was Patrick. And he goes, Patrick, do you know if my lease is transferable? And Patrick said, give me a minute. He checked and he goes, yeah, it's transferable. And he goes, what does the guy need? He goes, he just needs good credit and he's good to go. And he asked me, do you have good credit? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, okay. And the next day they transferred it to me. And it worked out great because KFC had negotiated a lease from like 20 years before that. And they had I think it was 3 or 5 years. And we got them at 15 or 16 years. So we still had the remaining 2 and another 5. We've been now there 20 something, so we have to renew. But, it's how things work out. And it worked out better for us because their lease was 10 times better. So this is probably early 23 or late 22. And then we started working. Typical Miami mentality. You want to do it all on your own. You're on a budget. You don't have any money. Everybody's cleaning and so on. So from my brother-in-law who helped me tear things down, and then realized we needed permits, and the inspector come, the whole ordeal. And then a gentleman from San Juan Construction, a gentleman from Puerto Rico, helped me get all the permits, and Joshua, who was my architect at the time, helped me design some stuff. And I had a local teacher from Venezuela that helped us paint all the walls. She was a local art teacher here, or still is. And so it was a lot of local friends and stuff that we had developed through the grocery store that we knew. And also, Manuel, there was a gentleman who's been a customer forever. He helped us because I was traveling for my bicycles, and Aurora was running the grocery store, so he would stay. So many people that were customers that, you can't do a lot of these businesses without great people helping you. So I can name a million more people. So And then we opened in June. Mi Apa originally got set up as a order at the counter and sit down, and it had the hotline in the front, and we had a lot of things that are not there today. So we wanted to do it like original Miami style. So we had sugarcane juice, where you press the sugarcane through. We had the orange juice maker that, cut the orange and all that. We had like all the food was served in the front, and you took a tray and you served. And then we hired 5 girls, and the girls would just help serve. But the first day that we opened, I'm in Jacksonville. It was on Monday, because that's the day I used to go to Jacksonville. And I call Aurora early in the morning, and I said, "How's it going?" And she's, "Just a couple of people have walked in." And I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." And then I call her like at 10, and she said, "A few more people walked in." And that's it? And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "All right." I call her at 11, and she says, "I'm busy. It's starting to get busy. I got to let you go." Again, we're typing in Cuban sandwich 156. We're typing in everything. And it was the first day, so they had to memorize all the numbers.
How did you publicize the opening?
So we got lucky because we put coming soon sign. I think I sent you a picture, and we had that, and we got very lucky because I think it was timing. Gainesville was like hungry for other options. I think the location was amazing because it ended up being a great location for us. We were near university. We're very centralized Gainesville when you look at it, because if you live on I-75, you're near 34th Street at University. But if you live in downtown, you're near 34th. It's almost like in between everything. And then the Alligator did a story, and the Gainesville Sun did a story. And I think people were just desperately waiting. So I call her like at 1, and she's like, "I can't talk." I call her at 2, and she's like, "I can't talk." And then I think I show up around 6, and there was literally a line out the door all the way to the corner, and people had been waiting there for like an hour. So it was like, and then I started looking at the process, and I'm like, so they have to come in through the order and then stand waiting for their food or take a seat. And people that were to go kind of had to do the same thing. So I started analyzing the process. And that day or Tuesday I was in town. That Tuesday I was like, this is not working, the to go in the front. So I said, "Aurora, you need to hire more girls, and we're going to sit people. We're going to get rid of this food in the front, and we're going to serve it straight from the back. It doesn't look presentable. It doesn't look anything." And then we moved that hotline on the 3rd day. We moved it to the back. We got rid of it, put a cover over it where the lid was. And that table was there forever. It was a massive table that was in the front. And we put a hotline in the back, and then we would start serving food as you order it. And everything came from the back, and everyone would walk in and get seated. It's the same process that we have today. It took like a couple of months to get the drive-thru open, just because we were so slammed in the front, we couldn't figure out how to get the drive-thru open. And we did that for many, many, many years.
And you also have a ventanita.
Yeah, so the ventanita took a little while to open. That was Miami style ventanita. The coffee machine was right there because people would order. The idea was to have display things. There was a glass enclosure on the bottom so you can see different things. Miami tends to have like either cigarettes or gum or things on the, it didn't go as well for that. So we kept the ventanita, but it was tricky because you had the drive-thru and the to-go and the dine-in, and then on top of la ventanita. So it was learn and figure out how to do everything. So then we stayed busy. We stayed really, really busy, worked with the hours. This is 2003. Gainesville was very different in 2003 because we opened in June, and this is summer. We were slammed for probably June might have been like summer B or something like that. So it's, when the fall came around, it was even busier for us. And so then we had to find, then we were still running La Aurora. My dad was still going to Miami to get stuff for La Aurora. So yeah, that was the tricky part. Then how can I share 20 years if I broke them up for you? The biggest thing I can tell you is the staff. If I can memorize like the staff that have come through there, I think that's what's made it. It's been, Mi Apa runs in cycles with the teams, and sometimes you have amazing teams, good teams, a lot of drama teams, a lot of obstacle teams, and the team goes up and down. We had that first year, those 5 first girls were the staple. I mean, those were solid. And then from there, we hired like another 10 staff with a few boys. And, it was just a very tight group. We would have parties at the house. We would rent a bus and go to the beach every year. We would have picnics at a park. It was because it was a small group, and we were able. Also, the kitchen and the front of the house would mingle a lot together. And Aurora did a really good job. So from 2003 to 2005, it was the team and the people that we had. I think what made a difference. Gainesville was about the same, but when the summer would hit, you would see the drop. You would also lose a lot of staff, and we had to learn how to, be prepared to hire, because you would lose. A lot of kids would graduate, leave town, and so on. So the other big thing I think for restaurants like this in a college town is that the restaurant becomes the family, because they're away from the family. Especially some of the international students, because they're here alone or so on. So that I noticed. Then you have tragedies within the restaurant, and the hardest day for me in the restaurant was a phone call from a gentleman, and he's telling me that Paola and Willie worked in the kitchen. He was from Peru, and Paola was a Colombian architect going to school here. She was a server, and they had started dating, and they decided to go to Jacksonville on a Friday, and they got rear-ended by a truck and both killed. So Aurora called the mom, and I had to call his mom. And I'm sorry. And that was crazy. Paola's mom was able to make it and retrieve Paola. And
from Colombia.
Yeah. And then we had to pay the expenses for Willie's parents because they couldn't afford it. And his cremation and everything. So it wasn't only hard for us, but it was hard for the team. We had to shut down the restaurant. And so, yeah, that was the hard day for both of us. And then how do you open again? And you can't stay closed because not only does the restaurant need to stay open, but you have people that pay the bills from the restaurant. So that took a no deal. And after that, now this is 2006, my mom had suffered from cancer, and cancer came back, and I brought her from Miami. We had just signed the lease to expand La Aurora over to the existing building, and so we fought with Mom, and here with her cancer coming back. During the process, wow, this seems like a story of crying. So the process of mom fighting cancer, running the restaurant, I'm still doing the bicycles, and then we're trying to expand Aurora. We had also bought a new house, and that was another big step. And Aurora's taking my mom to radiation. We found out she's pregnant. So we go through the whole pregnancy with mom sick, and Giuliano, our only son, is born in May 18th of 2007. And mom passes away in June 18th, 30 days later. So, and the restaurant needs to stay open. And mom was also working in the kitchen. So another obstacle you have to go through. But luckily, in the history of Mi Apa, it doesn't matter what obstacle or staffing or so on. It seems like our business side have gone up, either because the restaurant has been a staple and every year that goes by has been around longer, but it also, I think Gainesville, we've been lucky that it's been growing. I remember, maybe 10 or 15,000 kids would stay for the summer, and now it's 25,000 and 30,000. So then this is across the street. We are winning national championships and with, Tim Tebow and Downey Warp. So it's a great place to be. Giuliano's born, and Aurora has to leave the restaurant, and we hire some of the servers. This is something very important about Mi Apa. We've always been very hire within. The few times that we've hired from outside has not worked out for us. So if you look at Gainesville currently, Shayla is my GM there, and she's been there since high school. If you look at Aaron, who's my GM in Jonesville, he's been a server from there for a while. Vanessa, who's my GM in Alashua, she's been with us 18 years. So she's been there since the beginning when she was going to UF in Santa Fe. And then there's a bunch of other ones from the back of the house and so on. So we hired a Chetty, who was the GM, Cheryl Dean, and she ran that store for us through the whole time. And we hired another manager for La Aurora. And so now it's 2007, moving to 2008. We finished La Aurora, the new building. I was able to finish that, but we're also moving into the residential crisis. And if we're talking business, this is, besides Gainesville being very protected of national crisis like the residential downturn and so on, Mi Apa is very protected in the sense of the category we're in. We're in a casual dine-in that is affordable. It's almost like affordable to buy food from there, but you can still get full service. It kind of falls in between. So even on the downturn in 2008, 2008, and 9, we did good. We actually did pretty good. Then 2009, going through mom, going through Giuliano, going through all these ordeals, I'm getting burned out of the bicycle industry and the cycling and driving so much. So I have been with them 16 years by then. And I talk to the owners and I say, I'm getting tired. I don't want to do this anymore. And they were very flexible with me, and I decide to start thinking of leaving the company. And I'm vacationing with some friends, and could I do a story of like something, because I think it's important that I share Mi Apa in the contents of the goods and the bads in the sense of what's made it, because while I'm vacationing with some friends in Dominican Republic, they own Tioga Town Center, and they say to me, Peter, the restaurant that's there in the corner is closing. Would you like to take that over? And I was like, Mi Apa doesn't fit in Tioga, it doesn't go there. He's like, no, let's do a high-end place. And I'm like, no interest in high-end, that's not what I do. And then I mentioned it to another friend, and he's like, I got the chef for you. And it just kind of, everything just intertwined. And I had to interview a chef, interviewed a few people, and happened to know an interior designer that was really good, and she was out of work because it was the crisis, the residential, and a lot of people were not restaurants, and everything clicked. And we moved into Tioga with the concept of fusion tapas, and we did Mediterranean, Asian, and Latin food. We brought a chef from Miami, and we opened a restaurant called Sabore. And Sabore opened in 2010, and I left the company in 2010. So leaving the company in April and opening the store in August 2010. Aurora and I opened that restaurant, hired great people, but it was a completely different new world for me. I'm not a big going out person. The bar was not something I knew a lot of, and we worked it very, very hard. And why do I bring Sabore is because we put almost 2 years of 80-hour weeks into that project and completely forgot about Mi Apa and La Aurora. They ran it with their managers, and then when that store started doing bad, we started pulling from the restaurants and the grocery store, and then that put a lot of stress into, this is the ups and downs of the business. And then in May of 2012, I had never had anything that I failed on. So I had to make a decision that, Peter, if you don't take your ego and eat it, and just take this as a knockout and get back up, you're gonna destroy everything else you worked for. So we decided to get rid of Sabore. Of course, we went to the landlord, which is a friend of mine, great guy, great family, and we went to them, and I told them we're going to shut it down, and they said, no, we really want you to stay open. And I was like, I have no interest in getting into more debt. Here's the key, and we handed it to them, and he took it over. And they ran it for like a few years and brought a new chef in, and did good. I was out of that, and I'm back to Mi Apa, and I'm now in debt with Sabore, and in debt. And I have to say, let's regroup and let's put effort and let's help my managers. And so I put all my effort in that. This is in May of 2012. In June, I get approached by a landlord in Alachua by the name of Joe Fincher. He's passed away now, an amazing person. And he tells me, Peter, I want you to open Mi Apa in Alachua. And I said, listen, I just left another restaurant. I don't want anything to do. Let me just take care of these two little businesses and let me regroup. And he's like, what do you need from me for you to go to Alachua? And I said, Joe, if I told you what I needed, it would be everything. We don't have the money. I don't know if I want to get into it right now to another restaurant. So if you give me a turnkey, I might be able to do it. We left on vacation to Costa Rica and came back in July. And when we came back, Joe calls me and tells me, Peter, you need to come see what we did here in Alachua. And I said, okay, let me go see it. And I only spoke to him that time. And we went to Alachua, and he had built a Mi Apa. Like literally, he went to Gainesville, copied it, took pictures, and duplicated it. Did the hoods, the equipment, everything. And he goes, turnkey. He says, if you want it, just sign the lease. Of course, you're going to have to pay me for everything I put in here, but I'll finance it for you. And I said, Joe, you're crazy, but okay. And in December, we were in there. We opened in 2012, December, 6 or 7 months after I didn't want anything to do with more restaurants. So Alashua was complicated. Complicated in the sense it's a different market. It's not a college. Culturally, the people around there are not as open to Cuban food, I think, or so on. So it was something new to them. So that took a little while. I want to say Alashua took almost 3 years, to the point that I almost thought, oh man, I made another mistake. But we were prepping all the food in Gainesville, a lot of the food we were prepping, and then delivering it with our truck to over there. And Gainesville kitchen is not that big. As sales kept going up in Alashua, things started getting very tight. So this is now 2015, 2016, and we're struggling. This is gonna make it, not gonna make it, and it's tight over there. I don't know what to do. I have talking mentors, and sometimes the people that you need around you to take you to the next level, I think is huge for any business owner. I was friends through Sabore. I had met Freddie Weavy, which is at the time owned 13 Domino's Pizza here in town. And Freddie had just sold Domino's Pizza and I think wanted to retire. I think that was his initial thought. And then he came back, and he's a very busy mentality kind of guy, and he wanted to do something. He said, Peter, I want to do marketing, and I have a lot of experience. Would you be interested? And I said, where do I sign? And so I was his first customer, and we signed with Freddie. And Freddie said, the first thing is we got to take advantage of I-75 in Alashua. And of course, we got to fix your image. We got to clean some stuff up, and we got to get more involved. And one of the things that Freddie helped me quite a bit was getting signage on I-75, because that brought 10 or 15% more. The people would get off and see it. And that's what took us to get us to the next level. And then Alashua started breathing. I also took a server, Vanessa, from here, who was just an assistant manager, and I moved her over there. And that switch of management to Leo, who we had, was kind of getting burned out of the whole industry, and he wanted to do something different, which that's another thing that happens in this industry is you got to respect people getting burned out from the hospitality. It's a hard business. Mm-hmm. So also there's people that do it because you make okay money, but not necessarily for long term. So you got to be able to separate the few that say, this might not be what you are going to do for the rest of your life, but I guarantee you that if you do it to your best of your ability, there will be a time that what you learn here will be useful somewhere else. And I never thought that running a bike shop would help me run because it has nothing to do with the other, but I think at 19, running 7 or 8 man crew is what gave me the experience to run La Aurora or whatever. Also seeing Jack and Ben run their company, the way they run it, and the way they treat their 6 first employees put a base for me on how to run it and how to take care of the staff. So those are all things. So that you have to respect that people want to improve, and if you cannot do it with them, so that was the other thing. So Freddie coming in, and that was the other thing that Freddie taught me that I think has been very important for me is community involvement. If you're not part of the community, and we think we're part of the community because we're involved with the staff and our own, but no, we have to go outside and be supportive to the community. And Freddie was one that, said, Peter, you have to get more involved. And he really pushed me to be, donating more food and helping churches and helping, causes. And we did a lot of work with that, from raising things for hurricanes and.
What about them, telling people about Cuban and Latin food?
Yeah. So my concept, my idea with the Latin food is a way to attract other cultures to the Latin food is to make it welcoming. Sometimes if you make it, I don't want to say the word, if you make it too much about your culture, you overdo it. So it needs to be, Mi Apa is a place that it is as Cuban as you can get, or as Latin as you can get, from the amount of Spanish you hear talking around you, or how loud it is sometimes, or just the person. But it is still welcoming in the sense of the music is very even, or we try to run the food more like, this is what we eat and this is our style, you have to try it. But if you don't like it, it's fine, but if you like it, this is what we do. We don't try to manipulate it too much, that is trying to Americanize it. This is what we do, this is our style, and is it perfect? No. I mean, a perfect example is, yes, I'll serve an Americano, but it's not what we do. We do café con leche. And now you go to, a lot of coffee shops, and café con leche is a standard, or cortadito is a standard, or Cuban coffee is a standard. Like if you go to Barney's or you go to some of...
But that's pretty new.
But I love it, because I think that's the people accepting. I mean, I don't think there's not a sandwich shop now in this country that doesn't have a Cuban sandwich. It's like a standard, So, and that's what I love. So I think we're just trying to make it as authentic as possible, but still make it welcoming for any culture. And if you look at our new slogan, it's Cuban food for all. And what I mean by that is that everyone is welcome. So
how has that slogan changed over the years?
So we've gone through a few. It was Cuban food with love. Was one of the first ones. Then Freddie pushed hard on best Cuban food north of Miami. That was for a long time, which I accepted. Miami has better Cuban food, and then lately we've been switching. Our cups say "Made with Cuban Love," and that one's been very good. And then recently, our menu front cover has Cuban food for all, and we keep changing it because I think business needs to develop. I think you need to evolve, and if you don't evolve, I'm one of those that I'm willing to try anything and keep evolving. Technology has been huge for us. So by the time Al-Ashra opened, we were one of the first ones in this town to have toast, which now everybody uses. We were one of the first ones, I'll give credit, with the exception.
Is
POS system, yeah. So we used Toast. We had a company called Micros, which was a big national chain, and then we switched to Toast because they were cloud-based, and we thought that was the technology going. But we were one of the first ones to have handhelds. All the girls have handhelds. They're very expensive and so on, with the exception of Sacho's Pizza, which he had them from ever, and I give him credit. Those guys are very innovative. But we were one of the first ones to have that. So we always wanted to. For mom and pop, it's hard. For national chains, it's easy, but to be technology driven, it's always been a little hard for us.
What have been other technology in corporations? I'm thinking even like kitchen equipment.
Yeah, for us, I think the POS part and the integration part has been our biggest technology. So we use a primary accounting software that is exclusive for restaurant industry. We don't use QuickBooks or anything like that.
What is it called?
It's called Compete. It's owned by a company now called the Restaurant 365, and Compete handles all of our inventory and then all of our accounting. And not only that, it also handles all of our invoices from the commissary, which I'll follow for the next step. So we opened Al-Ashra 2012, and then around 2016, we're Al-Ashra, now new signage on I-75 and so on. We're doing better, but Gainesville Kitchen is to the limit. And we say, okay, guys, we need a centralized kitchen. We got to start shopping for a centralized kitchen. Freddie and I talked about it forever. And every day he would tell me, you got to get that going. You got to get that going. We finally found a building that we loved. And we bought the building and started building our kitchen. In 2017, we were able to take our key staff, my aunt, Pedro Luis, which is an employee that has been with me forever, and that Juancito, I took 10 of my key employees and I moved them to the centralized kitchen, and that's where our headquarters is. We also brought our accounting team and HR team and so into an office there, and then we created a team in the front. But that changed everything. That place has a loading dock. We made a hotline. We slice all the hams. We bake all the bread. We cook all the desserts. We prep everything there, and then that gets delivered in a refrigerated truck to each stores every day. And I'm not 100% sure. I think we're the only restaurant in town with a commissary. I talked to Mark and Steve from Leonardo's Pizza, and they had done it years ago. But Miami's very common. So New York and those kind of areas are very common because the spaces are so tiny where you can rent that they rather prep and sew in another industrial area and then bring it back. Mm-hmm. So it also helps us stay consistent. It's very hard to cook a flan with 4 different chefs. It's easier to have it in one location and do it even. But second problem now is 2 restaurants are too little of restaurants for an expense of having a commissary. So now we have to multiply to justify doing it that way. So then we start looking, and now is 2017, and we start looking, and it takes us years to find the right store for Jonesville. And I didn't think I wanted to go to that side of town anymore after Savory, but we found a location with a drive-through. We think it's an area that is growing. It's growing that way. So we jumped on it. I think it was we signed the lease. We worked on it all through 2019, and we signed the lease January of 20. And a month later, COVID hits. Mm-hmm. So here's another one that it's having the right team that makes the difference. In early February, my operational manager, Micah, comes to me and goes, Peter, we should sit and talk about COVID. And I said, don't worry about COVID. COVID is not coming here. That's in China. That's and in Europe. And 2 weeks later, I'm like, Italy is going crazy. Spain is going crazy. Everybody's going crazy. And we're like, we need a plan. And we just, even if it doesn't come or doesn't blow up here, we still need to plan ahead. So we sat with Freddie and the team sat and was like, what do we need to do? And then we started saying, okay, let's get signs for curbside pickups. Because if they shut us down, we were planning all this before the city had reacted. So we literally had signs already printed, and the city had not shut us down. So by the time that we reacted, and the city started saying no dine in, we were ready to go. We already were doing third-party deliveries, and I remember we were doing 2 companies, and we signed up with everybody. And then we said we had handhelds already, but we bought cones for the drive-through to go outside because the lines would get so big. So that preparing made a difference. We couldn't find masks, and we actually got paper napkins and rubber bands. And we set the girls and we made masks. And we sat at home and made masks. And so we made masks out of paper napkins. But being prepared and having the right team, I think that's what saved us. And 2020 turned out being a great year for us, even without any dine-in. I think we were down slightly, but we might have been, I hate talking about, but maybe more profitable that year. And then in 2021, we were able to get from February to September. We were like, hold off on Jonesville because I don't know if we're going to be in business in a year. And by then we figured out we're going to be fine. And we signed with the construction company and they started building it. In September of 21, Jonesville was open. And by then we were with Aramart here, the food court was handling all the food areas. And they were buying fruit from us and selling it. We had they would buy it, the sandwiches, they had it over at the orthopedic on 34th. The food court here at Gator Corner, they had a whole section for Mi Apa. And so then when Aramart lost their contract and Chartwell came in, we thought, oh, all that work and we're going to lose the business. But Chartwell was very impressed with us and met with us and said, no, we really want you guys, but we want to do it even better. We don't want to buy the fruit from you. We want you guys to actually have a location and give us a little bit of time and let's see what comes up. And then Papa John's left the location we were in and we were able to move into that. Chartwell was very nice to us, and not only did Jonesville come on board, but Mi Apa UF Rights Union came on board. And that has opened up a different concept in my eyes of businesses because I never thought I could make those work. But it's been good. And the staff loves it because they're open from 7 to 5. They get to go home. And on the weekends, they're with their family. It's a little tricky when they're off on vacation. Like, I don't know what to do with the staff when that happens. But luckily, we have 3 other restaurants and we can move some people around. So I don't know how much I covered, but...
No, absolutely. So if you want to tell me a bit more about, throughout the years, what has been your involvement, so your position in the firm today, and how has that changed over time? So we're talking about 80 hours a week.
Yeah. So from 2003 to 2010 that I left the bicycle industry, we ran the stores. Aurora helped me run the stores till she gave birth to Giuliano. And then they've been run. So I would do the bicycle things, but I ran all the numbers. So the part of the numbers and the decision making and who do we sign and even some of the interviews or who do we hire upper management, I handled. And so after 2010, we went to Sabore. We put all those hours into that. I would say I put full commitment to Mi Apa 24/7 after 2012. That's when you've seen the expansion of Mi Apa grow into Jonesville, or to Alashua, to Jonesville, to Commissary, to UF, and everything else. I'm involved with every decision on upper management or growth expansion. But it is very important for me that every decision that I make, I am thinking, how could I train people to make the decision on their own? That is vital for me, not just because I believe that a business that only works if I run it is worth less, but also because I would like to leave this for future generations, and I think it would be easier that it's self-runs itself. And the face I'm on, so my title would be CEO President of the company, and Aurora and I own it 50-50, and I have a operational manager and I have a district manager who handles the 4 restaurants, and operation is just in charge of all the logistics and everything on this top end, and he's got a team of 3, including maintenance, including inventory, including all that stuff. And then I have a management team that is HR and 2 accountants and bookkeeper. And so they report to me, and operational reports to me, district reports to me, and manage GMs report to district. And that is pretty much the foundation.
Yeah. How would you say this, how to run the business is being documented? And I mean, do you set up a system of training that goes, is onboarding, or is it regular with all the employees?
So everything we've done till today has been on paper. So basically it's been, if you have a recipe book, the recipe book is at the restaurant and we train the staff. And if there's a question mark, they go back to the recipe book. Onboarding and training in the front, they have checklists to make sure that all the training gets done. We're moving away from that. We're moving away from the paper, and we are in the process of launching Mi Apa University, which is basically all digital. So all the training is done digitally, and not only all the training done digitally, all the exams are done digitally, and everything is moving more to digital videos. So the way it would work is you have onboarding presentation, and then you go through all your policies presentations, and then you test. And we follow the show, tell, rule, do, whatever, that is basically you show them, and then you tell them how to do it, and then you train how to do it, and then you review that they did it. And it's like a 5-point system. And then the idea is that they would do their onboarding, and then from their onboarding they would do their policies, or their other policies, from sexual harassment to whatever we follow, and then they're trained based on the role they're playing. So if you're being trained for to go, these are the 6 or 8 things. And it can start from basic training on how to clock in on your computer to how to go to the table. What we had not done in the paper training is scenarios. And scenarios is something very important. And scenario means I can train you how to go to the table, but we've never told you how to act to a rude customer, or how to win over an upset customer, or things like that. Those scenarios, those we're working on hard. And I think the other thing is tracking it, because I can give you the training in paper, but that doesn't mean the managers did a good job of training the staff with it. So the software technology today, what it's going to help you is showing you who's trained. Mm-hmm. And so I can literally go to a location and I can say, the Cuban sandwich from today on is not going to be toasted a minute and a half. It's going to be toasted a minute and 45 seconds. So I can update the recipe book and tell my supervisor in the kitchen, or tell my GM, tell your supervisor. But I really don't know if my 8 sandwich guys have been told. This would actually launch a video and instructions and a test that goes to every single person. So within a day, I can see how many people have watched it. And not only that, we're actually setting it up in a way that you get prices on how soon you do it or how well you score. And it could be tokens, or they call it badges. And so that is what the chains are doing. This is how they're training and how they do it. This company that we went with, they launched Marco's Pizza, and it's one of the biggest growing pizza franchise. They're actually moving very strong into this Gainesville market. Marco's Pizza they did all the training for Nukes, which is right there in Butler Plaza. So the chains, when you have 50 stores, to invest $20,000, $30,000 in videos and all that is nothing. For me, it's tough. Mm-hmm. So the structure for us, the way we do it is, the restaurants are charged a percentage of their gross sales and given to management. And management, you can call it a franchise fee. We don't have franchise, but it's an internal fee, and that is reinvested back into management to handle HR. We take care of their maintenance. We cover all their advertising. But not only that, is R&D. And R&D is covering operational, and operation is covering that. And it could be from training to something like another software that we launched is asset control, asset management. So what a fryer would break, and the manager would call the repair guy. The repair guy would come and say it's this and this, and it's $1,000. What we didn't know was that was the fourth time that fryer got fixed for $1,000, but it's only like a $2,500 fryer. When do you decide to say, forget about this? Let's just, or is this guy charging or approving it? So it's all done through software. So we have an app, and the managers just report a problem. Even the equipment has QR codes. You scan the QR code, and it reports everything. But not only that, it troubleshoots you before you call the tech, so you save money. These are all things that I could never do with Mi Apa Gainesville. Maybe a couple with Mi Apa Alashua. Now with Mi Apa Jonesville and UF, there's a big enough percentage moving over to here. Mm-hmm. The mistake for an owner would be that you don't reinvest. And if you don't reinvest into a percentage, if you take that profit and buy a boat and buy, then you have no growth. And the problem you have with no growth is currently we have 150 employees. So that means technically I have 150 families that I'm responsible for. So on any given moment, out of those 150, a big chunk of them might be happy with the job security and so on, but some of them are eager to keep moving up, buy a house, pay for the kid's wedding, whatever it is. If I don't have the growth, then I cannot help them grow. Mm-hmm. That's the challenge for me. How do I keep it growing? And I sincerely believe that I've been too slow to grow. How do I keep the product getting better, trying new things? But not only that, having the logistics behind the scenes to help grow. Like if you called me today and said, Peter, I love your store. I think Atlanta would be very well. We're not ready for Atlanta because my commissary is too far. But if somebody called me and told me, Peter, I have a store in Lake City, then maybe we can do it. We have the capacity, and we have a team in place that we can put up. So going back to the structure of the company, I've done very good of not only putting procedures to help the company run itself, like I can leave and it runs itself, but it's training the team. We do a meeting every month. It's called Level 10 meetings, and it's kind of like from a book called Structure. And basically what you try to do is you do the rocks of all your little problems, and you do 90 days problems, or you do a year, but you also have to look at the far 5 years down the road, where do you want to be? But you have to keep adjusting it, because you might get to it very quick, or you might take you forever, like COVID could hit or anything, or financial issues or health issues. But I've done a good job of training the staff to say, your job is not to tell your team what to do. Your job is to develop your next general manager. So if you go tell your team, you're missing pastelitos, the bathroom is dirty, and whatever it is, a few things, if you're doing your runs, then you're not doing your job. Your job is, who's going to be checking the bathroom? Who's going to be checking the pastelitos? Who's going to be checking? Because then these kids are talented. Like, it's amazing how good. I mean, these are kids getting doctor's degrees. They can handle a pastelito case. So these are like the future attorneys and the future that are going through the stores. So they have the capacity. You just got to learn how to lead them correctly. So that if I do that, if you're an assistant manager, you need to treat your staff like they're going to be your second assistant manager. And if you're if you're a GM, then you got to make sure you treat your GM. Okay, this is how I do it. This is how I want you to do it. You got to be detailed about it catering. If not, you mess it. And then my district manager is, forget about treating them like you're the district manager. Treat them like they're the district manager, because you're going to be regional soon, and that mindset. What I have not done so far is I have not created a team for growth. So I'm handling the growth part. I think that's be my next step. There should be enough money put aside to have a team that looks for a location, gets the location studied. There's AI now that is brilliant. I just did a presentation on a software that with cell phones they can track. He gave me a presentation that he can track everyone that came to Mi Apa, from where, how often, but not only that, based on that data, what would be the best location for me? And that's available now. And I'm like, God, I wish I had more time to do that. But I'm worried about remodeling Alashwa, for example, which is another thing we're doing. So structurally, I try to run the business on its own. I don't know if my son Giuliano would like to be involved. He wants to do business because that's probably all he's seen me do. I almost feel like he's my mind. I think he's capable of doing what his dad has done times 10 without needing his dad for anything. I think he's capable of doing more stuff. But if he wanted to go this route, then he can do it. But I need to set it up in a way that that my team is getting better. Like something we do is all of my upper management that have been with me more than 10 years, we all buy them cars. So we pretty much tell them, this is the budget and get the car you want, and the company pays for the car, and they drive new cars, all of them. So, and I think it's just a way to show gratitude, but not only that, I think in the eyes of their families and their friends, they see that, wow, so-and-so putting 15 years for Mi Apa has been paying off, and he's moving on and he's getting better and so on. I think it makes me proud that I go to headquarters and I only see new cars, and that is all, a little bit of me. So, yeah.
You've told me before that you did not know anything about the restaurant industry. So where have you gotten your ideas over the years, and how do you think, if you can give me examples of how do you think those ideas have made?
Yeah. So when I opened Mi Apa, I had no idea of the restaurant industry. I got help on making sure the product was good from people that knew how to cook and prepare and so on. My job was, how much do we sell the product for to be able to pay the staff, pay the food, and pay the overhead and leave a little left over. Luckily, and I always say this to some of my existing staff, luckily, at the beginning of La Aurora and the beginning of Mi Apa, I didn't need it because I had an income coming from the bicycle industry. So none of my lifestyle was affected if the restaurant made money or made no money. And I was lucky that I didn't have to put money into it. But so at the beginning, Paul, I literally made the menu like this. Cuban sandwich. Yeah, we're going to sell that for $5. And then we would sell it for $5. And we would sell it we would made it up. And it was always so funny to me because then, we started getting competition and I was we got some guys opened up a little store here and they copied our menu to the T. And I'm like, oh my God, they copied the menu, even the spelling mistakes. But not only that, the prices are the same, but I made up the prices out of thin air. I went to a seminar, I went to a restaurant show, and there was a course on something, equipment or something weird. And I sat in this course next to this guy for about 2 hours. And I really didn't understand anything of the course. But I started talking, and he was like, I got a little restaurant. And he's like, I got 3, and I'm in Naples. And he goes, hey, Peter, you should check out this website. It's called restaurantowners.com. I learned more from that website than anything else. I was like, I'll get home. And when I looked it up, it was the best thing I've ever, because it gave me what food costs should be like at a restaurant, and what labor costs should be, and what your operational costs should be. And it gave me detailed, and that tip that the gentleman gave me was the best tip ever. So I structured it based on that. The multiple stores with the satellite, it is very bicycle industry J&B who I work for, because they have a warehouse in Miami, which I worked at, and a warehouse in Fontana, California. And those are the ones for the ports, and then they distribute to those satellites. And that's kind of how I treated our business, based on their model. So, but yeah, so I learned the restaurant industry as we went. I've always been a numbers person, so I wish I would have studied accounting or something like that because I do enjoy that. But even today, I'm still learning. You know, COVID to last year, I made a huge mistake. I didn't raise prices, and inflation has been through the roof. I thought, you're not going to raise prices. We're going to eat it for a little bit, and things are going to come down, and they didn't. And I had to go up, and it was no. And ever since we went up May last year till now, it's been a little breather for us, a little better. So, so you learn from mistakes. So I learned food cost, I learned those kind of things, and then operational and cost. Labor has been the hardest. Using software, forecasting, preparing ahead, but I think people can run a business. I think for me, it's always been the numbers tell you a lot. Your product tells you a lot, but your service and how you treat your staff is, to me, the key. I always have this mindset that if we're good to the staff will be good to your customers. And I always believe that if you're a staff and you're not happy, I almost rather help you get another job, because I don't think anyone should come to a job and be unhappy about it. Is it stressful? Yeah, I mean, of course, I can't fix that. Do you have to work weekends? Yes. This is a restaurant people come to eat in the weekends. But if everything else, can you enjoy it with people? And it's hard with kids. These are all 17 to 22. There's always drama. There's always thing. But you give support as much as you can. You show empathy as much as you can. And you hire really good teams. To me, if I hire a manager and she doesn't know how to treat a person, I don't care how good she is managing. She doesn't know how to talk to someone, she's not working for me, or at least not moving to that position. Because she can be a great server, but not necessarily know how to speak, or not necessarily know how to handle authority. Some people handle it differently. Mm-hmm. So that's key.
You said before that when you bought or when you signed the lease for Mi Apa, the Gainesville, mm-hmm. you had good credit. Could you talk to me about, and then also that you you were employed while trying to grow a business. What have been the forms of credit, financing, tough decisions, risk decisions?
So I can tell you, I would say till now, recently, Mi Apa has, every single growth has been internal, self-finance, 100%. With the exception of Jonesville. Jonesville, we did get an SBA loan, and now Alashwa is getting a new building across the street. Mm-hmm. We bought a piece of property, and we're going to build our first Mi Apa owned building with a drive-through, and that we are getting a bank loan to do the construction. But every other growth, including Sabore, was all personal money.
Personal savings over
the years. Personal savings, yeah. I've always, probably too much. I've probably been more all-in kind of personality. That means money doesn't drive me. I don't really care about money. Money to me is just another, I need money. Let me think. I don't care about the Ferrari. I just need gas to drive the Ferrari. So it's just for me to, if you give me $1 million today, I'm probably going to think, okay, $1 million divided by, I can get 3 restaurants open. That's how I think about it. I don't really care about too much. Of course, it's as I get older, I'll turn 52 now. As I get older, I can't be all in all the time. And so I have to start thinking about Giuliano and Aurora and down the road. But yeah, it's been self-financing. now it's getting trickier because interests are not helping. But I think moving forward, I think if we want to expand our growth quicker, we have to go into bank financing and get more credit. La Aurora was personal money. Mi Apa of Gainesville was personal money. Alashra was landlord's money. Jonesville was SBA loan, and UF was, you don't have to do anything. This is the beauty of that concept. They pretty much provide everything for you. You just kind of bring the food and the staff. So that's a great concept, and that's something I would like to move more into. Of course, you pay a higher percentage to them for doing that, but your return on your investment is instantaneous because you have nothing pretty much in there. It was minimum cost. Then credit. I've always been responsible from a very young age. I don't live over my means, or I've been, like I said, money doesn't drive me, so I've always spent everything but not overspent it. So, and if I spend it, I say I spend it on trying to create more things, not...
Before we go into the question, what's next for Mi Apa, can you tell me a little bit more about the difference between business and family? If it sounds like it's been family and business all throughout, but perhaps less now that the business has grown. But how do you see that actually impacting or being a benefit to the business, being an advantage? Not being it.
So on the family side or family time, it's not just mine. It's how I structure the company. So for me, I structure the company that I can be away whenever I want. I think if I'm working 80 hours, it's because I enjoy the 80 work. It doesn't feel like I'm overworked. I want to do, but if I want to go ride my bike in the morning and show up to work at 11 and like it doesn't, I don't have hours in that sense. I've gotten that. In the old days it was, yes, I work Monday through Friday, come Friday night we would sleep a few hours, go to La Aurora, that sense. Or I brought you pictures, is every ounce of that fried chicken from that hood I cleaned myself. So, it's and I had it under my nails for days, but it doesn't feel like I burned out. Ever since Giuliano was born, we've been lucky that I can spend a lot of time with him. And that balance, I'm good. Probably the only thing we struggle with is that I bring the conversation. I tend to talk a lot about the business, even on family time. Like a typical conversation with me and my son would be, hey, let me show you the blueprints of the 3D for Alasha. You got to see this. Or but he's into it too, or at least he likes to show interest so he can communicate with me. But on the staff side, I try to, like, my manager's only max day work is 45 hours. We don't do this. GMs and restaurants are known to do 60 hours and all that. The other thing is we do is they get a weekend rotation every month, and then they do, let me think, 1 weekend off, 1 Saturday off, 1 Sunday off, and then they work both days on the weekend, and they do that rotation. And that allows them to not get burned out. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'll cover each other and do two to get 2 off or something, but I try to do that. I'm a believer that if money is not everything, and I keep saying that, so I tell my staff, yes, you can get paid more if you work more, but what's the quality of life for you? So let's not work more. Let's just try to make more by either making the store sell more or getting us to get more stores open or so on. So. Yeah, so it's personal in life, but we do enjoy ourselves. I think one of the questions you had for me was, how do I disconnect? So I love water, so I do have a boat, and to me a perfect day would be taking the boat out on the lake with my kid and all his friends and towing them behind the raft or wakeboarding, or I'm totally happy just taking the boat to Swanee River and just cruising down the river, parking it somewhere, and just having lunch on the water. I can enjoy that. I would love to have a house on the lake. That would be amazing. But if all my ex-employees that have done very well for themselves, like the original 5, and those are now dentists and have clinics and so on. So, now they have the boats and the yachts and they're doing great for themselves. That's what we do. We'll go to the Bahamas or something like that. But for me, health is something that concerns me, and I don't do a good job taking care of me as much as I should. But riding my mountain bike or riding my bike relaxes me. And then I love motorsports, so I love watching anything that's dangerous or racing, I love watching. So if it's F1 or NASCAR or motorcycles, anything like that. So those are the things I do. Dining in I like simple, clean, higher end, not higher end, but just unique restaurants. And I wish Gainesville would even have more, but we tend to go Tampa or Orlando or Jacksonville or Miami. Miami can give you a little crazy, but yeah.
Well,
I think I'd rather have Tampa.
Yeah, talking about Miami, back when you had to go back and forth to Miami, did your parents, because your dad, you said he had a mechanic shop, and so he wasn't in the restaurant industry either.
No.
How did they?
Yeah.
How was that?
As a child, the only things I recall on the cooking side was, I remember, so I'll tell you a really quick story to how we thought of the restaurant. But I remember as a child, we would, Calle Ocho, you can have food vendings. Oh. And I remember selling mariquitas. So we would live nearby, so we made a bunch of mariquitas in little bags, and we had a little stall there, and we sold mariquitas. During La Aurora times, and this is like 2000, there was a Latin festival in downtown, and my dad roasted a pork, and we brought bread, because we can bring bread from Miami. We roasted a pork in una caja china, and then we brought a turkey fryer and tostones. And in the festival, we sold pan con lechon and tostones. We sold so much of that pork that at the end of the day, my dad was cutting up the ears to sell it. It's like we sold everything, almost the head. And everybody said, you guys, you need to do a restaurant, typical kind of thing. And I think that's when the first light bulb had that we could do a restaurant. Our family has always been not necessarily the food, but cooking has always been, because we're from the countryside, so cooking pork and arroz con pollo, moro, or all that was traditional for us, typical any holiday. The part of like sandwiches and all that was new for us, and that's why we had to bring this cousin of ours, Rolando. But I grew up right there on Flagler, so typical things like we have grits in our menu, and that came from a place I used to call Rancho Luna, and I would go there in high school, like every morning before class, and for $2.49 we would do 2 eggs, French fries, ham, café con leche, and a toast. And instead of French fries, I would get grits, and they had the best grits. So I don't think it's around anymore, but that's kind of the stuff we grew up. And then across my grandfather's gas station, there was a cafeteria, and Pablo's cafeteria there, and we would get from school and then just jump Flagler and go get croquettes and go get things. So that was the traditional thing.
Would you say you brought Miami to Gainesville?
100%. Yeah. I think, and if you look, the window, cafecito, and the pastelitos and the all that kind of concept, or the juices, and that's all Miami style. Miami recently has taken it to the next level. They're doing just amazing things, and there's things coming. There's things in the future that ideas that we have that I've had the opportunity to go back to Cuba, and there's a lot of different, I didn't realize, a lot of culturally way they cook in the island, very different depending on what part of the island. All I know is the Pinar del Rio side, which is the countryside, but if you go to Camagüey and you go to Holguín, they cook differently. And I've been lucky enough to be friends with Valero, who's a chef from Madrid, that was born in Cuba and raised in Madrid, and he was Sabore's chef after I left. But he lives in Cuba now, and I brought him for 6 months here, and we worked on the menu and so on. But
Can you give us a little bit of a...
yeah, for sure. So a couple of things that we've been looking at is we do our lechon. We do our lechon just roasted, and we do the meat. But we believe that we need to do more lechon with the skin. So a plato that has a lechon like the skin, and Madrid is very known for some of the lechon with the skin, crunchy. He wants to bring that on board. The other one is it's called disco volador, and disco volador in Cuba was in the 50s, and what it really all it is it's a sandwich press, but you do it on a little disc. You put the bread, you fill it with whatever you want, and you squeeze the bread, and then you put it over the range. Okay, and it's called disco volador
That sounds great.
in Paris. They just opened it's called Disco Burgers, and it's basically the burgers sandwiched in between I don't know if you ever done like a cheese melt, and you do that little thing that sandwiches the cheese melt, and you put it over the range and you burn it.
That sounds good.
But Cuba was there. There was a famous spot in Cuba in Havana that would do disco volador, and they were very popular. So
What
we're
about
looking
oreja?
Huh?
Oreja.
Oreja?
That's not...
Yeah, the other one is for us. We've been trying a lot of things like in desserts, because we do 3 desserts, and there's our main dessert and then churros. But we want to bring like dulce leche, which is different than like caramel dulce leche. Ours is more like crumbled leche cortada.
Like cuajada.
Like cuajada, yes, and you put it with sugar. So that's one of my favorite desserts that we don't have on the menu. And then lastly is we want to bring back the caquitos de guayaba. We want to bring back papaya, which is more dulce de papaya. And so things like that. And we wanted to also do original things, not just the traditional things, that are staple from us. Like we do the tamales, and that was Valero. Chef Valero decided to do the tamales. But again, we have to keep it in a concept that, so I take a product, but then I got to look and say, I have a drive-through, so it needs to be quick. Then I want to be recession-proof, so it needs to be affordable. Okay, and then it also needs to be food cost profitable, so you can do all of the. So then when you take it, sometimes I have this great product, and you're like, damn, this pork belly is so good, but it's like I cannot cook this good this fast. It would take me 30 minutes, but I can't do a car in 30 minutes. But if I cook it and I leave it there, like pre-made, then it gets like chewy and it gets hard, and I'm like, then I can't do it. Or you get a product that's really good, but it's so labor intensive to do it at the commissary that when I start running the numbers, it's so expensive that then I would say, well, let's just say the dulce de leche, it might be cuajada, which is expensive on the milk side, and then prepping it and cooking it, and you're like, this would be so expensive. I would have to get like $8 for this dessert. That's not a good example because that's an affordable item, but that happens too, and then it gets discarded because of that. And then lastly is Cuban food for all. Yes, I can do a lot of Cuban food, but I also have to do things that are appealing, because some of our food might not be like
like orejas.
Yes, like I lived in Valladolid, Spain, and the lady the teammate that I stayed with, she's like, Peter, Mom is gonna cook like this great food for you. I was like, oh yeah, what? And she's like, boom, shows me the rabbit, and I'm like, oh, look like a cat. But it was delicious. But I don't think I can have that on the menu.
Well, so we have to be on the lookout for now, not Miami to Gainesville, but Cuba. To
Yes,
Gainesville.
yes. The biggest thing is I'm trying to bring different regions of different things. And then the other big question is, how much do we expand out of the Cuban authenticity? Because we had arepas, which is a Venezuelan product and Colombian product, and we put them on the menu because half of our staff was Venezuelan and Colombian, and they wanted. But I took them out because I wanted to keep the concept very unique. So, but that might be an option to do different things and culturally bring other stuff. But right now we want to see if we can create some of our things, not just in the food, but in the desserts, and not just the desserts, but I think the beverage, it's a big, huge open. Like our smoothies and our shakes do very, very well, and those were all Balero's new recipes. And our juice, we took our juice, and he's like, Peter, our juice is good, but do you want to have good juice, or you want to have the best juice? And I was like, I want to have the best. And he goes, okay, then we have to do them better. And we did that, and the juices are amazing now.
What would be the change to that?
But you added more pulp. Yeah, because his mindset was, okay, so you're getting $2.50 for a juice with a third of the pulp. If we did half of the pulp, let's just get 50 cents more, but it's going to be like you're eating mango, not just drinking Publix juice, not to pick on Publix, but like traditional juice. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Peter. This
You're
has
welcome.
been super interesting.
Yeah.